Finding a person brave enough to identify this suspect remains our absolute best shot at cracking the case. That tip is the ultimate breakthrough we need. A genuine tip like that is exactly what will finally bring Nancy back to her loved ones. Throwing wild allegations at mourning relatives simply will not do it. We do not need some heavily edited screenshot from a gravesite visit, nor a clickbait headline mistaking a simple bouquet of flowers for an electronic jamming device. The only tip that counts comes from somebody who looks at that porch footage and immediately knows the guy. It takes someone who recognizes his stride or remembers that specific piece of jewelry. We need the person who saw a shift in his behavior right after February 1st to speak up. They are definitely out there, and their continued silence just drags this nightmare out. Law enforcement will keep pushing ahead regardless of civilian help. They are tracking genetic material, pinging cellular towers, and digging deep into financial transactions. Detectives rely on relentless forensic science to close the net. However, if that crucial witness picks up the phone today, we can wrap this up and get Nancy back much quicker. Should this heartbreaking story resonate deeply with you, just as it has with our team, please hit subscribe so you are fully prepared for the upcoming update. Go ahead and smash the like button while sharing this content, not for sensationalism, but for the hard facts we presented. We need people to understand the reality behind those electronic disruption devices. Everyone needs to know exactly how these gadgets operate, the ways authorities track them down, and how that digital footprint will ultimately unmask the culprit. We also need to clear the air regarding a devastated family who simply brought floral tributes to a memorial only to face horrific allegations from internet sleuths who skipped basic fact-checking entirely. Our channel will track every single development, fresh lead, and unexpected turn, because the book is far from closed on Nancy Guthrie. Those electronic blockers, the genetic evidence, and the cellular pings all left undeniable digital breadcrumbs. Even worse for the suspect, he honestly believed he could vanish completely into the shadows of the Catalina foothills on the morning of February 1st, yet he actually left behind a massive web of clues. He carelessly gave police 41 minutes of solid proof across that front porch, throughout the house, and over absolutely everything he laid hands on. Shadows could not hide him, the security systems rebooted, and justice is rapidly approaching. We will see you on the next one. So regarding Nancy Guthrie, folks keep suggesting that completely powered down cell phones can still transmit location data. That is an absolute myth. So assuming law enforcement actually pulled tracking data like the rumors suggest, authorities would be hunting for routine habits and analyzing exactly who happened to be nearby during her abduction. Every single detail matters here, though a truly prepared criminal would have ensured their device stayed entirely off the grid. However, doing any advanced surveillance or scouting in that neighborhood would have definitely left a digital trail. Investigators also track arrival routes, departure paths, and nearby connections, since criminals eventually power their gadgets back up. Another huge factor is basic human error, as many suspects mistakenly believe their electronics are completely shut down. They might have simply switched to flight mode, which begs the question of how they navigated the area without a map. Analyzing various handset configurations becomes incredibly useful once detectives zero in on a specific person of interest, and their mobile device would probably try to connect. In fact, the smartphone would constantly search for and recognize her personal internet network. A strange detail caught everyone's attention during the vigil. An individual was holding an item that online sleuths claim perfectly matches the mysterious gadget seen on the kidnapper that evening. Web forums are buzzing that this object is a transmission blocker, and rumors point directly to her daughter's husband as the man carrying it. Online communities are demanding answers to a puzzle that 38 days of searching, 100 federal agents, and a massive $1.2 to $2 million bounty haven't solved. Could the exact same individual who disabled those neighborhood security systems on February 1st have attended her vigil on March 2nd? That is the wild theory circulating right now. By the end of our discussion, you will discover the truth as we tear apart every single clue regarding transmission interference. We will break down exactly what these blockers do, their underlying technology, historical criminal usage, and the tracking methods used by detectives. You will also learn what federal agents uncovered around her property, featuring insights from top specialists in the field. We will hear arguments from professionals who believe a blocking device was deployed, alongside those who strongly disagree. Next, we will evaluate the allegations against her relative using hard proof, though we must remember she is still considered a missing person. Authorities haven't recovered a body. In that recent gathering, everyone labeled a burial service was entirely mischaracterized. Relatives simply gathered near her residence on March 2nd to honor her memory, exactly 1 month following the abduction. On March 3rd, Sheriff Chris Nanos explicitly stated his belief in her survival, while her loved ones offered a $1 million reward for her safe return. It is crucial to note that absolutely nobody mentioned here faces formal criminal charges. Law enforcement formally eliminated all relatives and their significant others from the suspect list back on February 18th. Keep watching as we dive deep into this interference hypothesis, weighing the available facts against wild digital speculation. Before diving deeper into the mystery, please smash that thumbs up and join our subscriber community right now. Definitely share this breakdown, because anyone running a smart home setup must recognize that this sophisticated neighborhood intrusion could easily target your own house. Sticking around until the finish guarantees you will understand these malicious tactics and learn proper defensive measures. So let's jump right into the meat of the story, beginning with the concrete timeline of her kidnapping. This interference concept actually originated from federal authorities who swept back through the area alongside local deputies during the first week of March. Detectives knocked on every single door, completely ignoring typical questions regarding surveillance video or suspicious cars. Instead, they aggressively pushed one specific inquiry about whether local broadband connections dropped on February 1st. Several residents informed journalists that investigators mentioned numerous complaints regarding sudden network failures during that exact time frame. A nearby resident discovered his smart doorbell log simply showed offline status during the abduction, meaning the system inexplicably failed to capture anything. This particular surveillance unit sat right next door and overlooked her exact property boundary. It offered the most pristine vantage point for tracking movement, yet it logged absolutely zero activity. Additional community members backed up reports that federal officers were highly focused on a particular technical issue. Authorities heavily questioned locals regarding network blackouts across the region that evening, indicating a very deliberate line of inquiry. Detectives weren't guessing at random, but rather verifying a distinct technological anomaly that brings us straight to the mysterious gadget. Consider the doorbell video published by federal agents on February 10th. Viewers clearly spotted a rod-shaped item poking out of the disguised intruder's clothing while they stood outside her door. Online communities instantly noticed the rigid extension pointing upward, sending social media into an absolute frenzy. Web sleuths aggressively debated whether the object was a transmission blocker, a tactical radio, or just a bulky smartphone accessory. While federal agents are keeping their lips sealed regarding the specific hardware, the mysterious gadget tucked away in the attacker's clothing, paired with the missing residential security videos and investigators knocking on local doors to ask about network outages, sparked a wild theory that currently anchors this entire criminal probe. Let us take a quick second to break down the actual mechanics of a frequency blocking gadget. The average person has never encountered one of these tools in the wild, leaving them completely clueless about how they operate and what their real limits are. Naturally, this widespread ignorance creates the perfect breeding ground for crazy rumors and false narratives to run rampant. Officially recognized as a radio frequency blocker, this piece of rogue tech overwhelms local airwaves by blasting junk data across standard wireless networks. Picture your main home network hub and your outdoor surveillance system quietly chatting back and forth on a dedicated private channel. Suddenly, an outside gadget starts screaming over that exact same wavelength, totally drowning out their voices until the camera completely drops offline. Consequently, your main hub disconnects from the web, preventing any crucial video clips from reaching cloud storage, which is exactly why these tools are strictly outlawed across America. Federal laws enforced by the National Communications Authority outright ban the advertisement, purchase, and deployment of these scrambling devices on a national level. Anyone caught breaking this rule could be slapped with penalties reaching $112,500 for each offense, plus serious jail time. Yet, despite strict government bans, the consumer market remains flooded with these units, easily snagged on the web for less than 100 bucks. These compact gizmos can easily fit into a standard shirt pocket, though their disruptive power only covers a very tight radius. An esteemed executive who founded the national organization dedicated to cracking unresolved criminal mysteries, Morgan Wright, explained to a major news outlet that civilian blockers only reach about 10 to 30 yards, hitting their maximum potency when positioned directly against the target network. When operated from further away, they might trigger annoying buffering or stutters, yet they usually fail to completely sever a solid video feed. Tactical versions utilized by armed forces or elite government guards cover massive distances, though they demand heavy battery packs and boast a bulky, obvious design. This difference in broadcast strength is absolutely crucial for this specific investigation, since a basic jammer fired up on the victim's front steps could only knock out electronics within that immediate 10 to 30 yard bubble. Any surrounding properties or distant neighborhood routers would have remained completely untouched by such a weak, localized pulse. Strangely enough, several nearby folks complained about sudden tech failures, even though they lived well past the 30-yard interference zone of a basic gadget. The security expert tackled this exact discrepancy, pointing out that general broadband blackouts experienced by the community simply do not align with standard interference devices, since the culprit would need incredibly advanced military-grade hardware to hit a house down the block. Therefore, since a cheap online gadget lacks the juice to crash a whole street's wireless network, yet multiple houses still lost service, we must assume the attacker either possessed weaponized military tech or actively sabotaged an entirely different network source. This logical pivot brings us straight to the freshly vandalized electrical junction box. Local law enforcement officers are currently looking into a broken telecom cabinet found just steps away from the main crime scene. Police representatives acknowledge that this tampered equipment is a key piece of their active case, though they refuse to spill any further secrets. Trashing a central service terminal perfectly answers the riddle of how widespread outages plagued numerous households all at once, something a tiny pocket jammer could never achieve. Intentionally snipping the main communication lines for this specific hillside community would easily blind an entire residential block in mere seconds. Such a targeted strike perfectly clarifies why the immediate neighbors discovered blank security feeds alongside distant residents reporting massive web failures. Pulling off this kind of physical sabotage also highlights a sinister degree of forethought that totally eclipses simply buying a cheap scrambler off the internet. Wrecking public tech terminals demands intricate knowledge of their locations, their exact functions, and the precise way to kill them without tripping an immediate emergency alarm. That level of detail proves intensive, calculated scouting. Such intensive prep work completely aligns with federal reports confirming the shady figure actually stalked the victim's residence on a prior occasion, showing up long before the kidnapping without any weapons or bags, conducting what major news outlets labeled as advanced tactical casing. Assuming the perpetrator deliberately smashed the street terminal while also packing a portable blocker, it proves they deployed a sophisticated double-blind strategy, severing the local grid to establish a massive digital dead zone. Meanwhile, that handheld gizmo acted as their personal insurance policy, guaranteeing that every lens pointed at the target property remained utterly blind, serving as an extra layer of protection just in case the main internet blinked back online. By syncing two separate disruption methods, they engineered a flawless technological void. This kind of brilliant malice defies early behavioral profiles, suggesting a rookie offender, heavily implying that this criminal received expert guidance from a seasoned professional. Before diving any deeper, I want to send a massive shout out to every single viewer backing our content today. Your unwavering viewership breathes life into this platform, expanding our audience through a shared passion for gritty, authentic reporting. Joining our membership program scores you killer backstage perks while directly funding our mission to expose even more intense criminal mystery. Every ounce of your generosity truly moves the needle and makes a world of difference. We always enjoy seeing our community gather, so please leave a quick comment letting us know your current location. For those of you sticking around with us today, go ahead and type that you are still watching in the comment section so we can spot our most dedicated viewers. Please take a quick second to hit that thumbs up button, and then we will dive right back into the story. We really need to break down the division among the professionals here, since the signal blocker hypothesis is incredibly complex and requires some deep understanding. Professionals examining the evidence generally fall into one of three distinct camps, with the first group firmly believing a blocking device was absolutely utilized. Everyday folks largely support this specific viewpoint, pointing to the visible antenna protruding from the perpetrator's clothing, the neighborhood connection issues, and the erased video clips as solid proof. An expert named Coffindaffer mentioned to Fox News Digital that this gadget might actually be a walkie-talkie connecting the perpetrator to a hidden partner. Her exact sentiment was that relying on a two-way radio represents a much more strategic move than simply grabbing an untraceable prepaid cell phone. She noted that modern lawbreakers completely understand federal tracking capabilities, leading her experienced intuition to conclude the so-called porch monster did not act completely alone. Assuming her analysis holds water and we are looking at a communication tool instead of a scrambling gadget, the whole narrative shifts completely. That scenario heavily implies teamwork, opening up the distinct possibility that an unseen partner was operating a signal blocker from a completely different vantage point. The second major camp, led by analysts like Morgan Wright and Lisa Miller, strongly dismisses the idea that any sort of blocking technology played a role here. Wright firmly argues that a standard, store-bought scrambling gadget simply lacks the necessary power to knock out signals across multiple adjacent property. Meanwhile, Miller points out that the official federal footage showing the suspect at the front door looks remarkably smooth and completely free of any digital distortion. She emphasized to the press that active scramblers cause severe interference, even famously crashing police computers during routine traffic stops. Had a blocking tool actually been turned on while the intruder stood on that specific front step, the security lens right in front of him would have failed immediately. That exact camera kept rolling without a single hiccup, capturing crystal clear visuals the entire time the suspect lingered. This smooth video strongly indicates that any potential blocking device remained switched off until the individual actually crossed the threshold, leading us to the third hypothesis. The latest line of thinking completely tosses out the scrambling gadget, suggesting instead that the busted telecommunications pedestal down the street was intentionally vandalized. Tampering directly with that community infrastructure would perfectly account for the widespread connectivity blackout without ever needing fancy electronic countermeasure. Under this theory, the visible pocket antenna was simply a two-way radio, while the sudden Wi-Fi drop resulted entirely from someone physically destroying the neighborhood cables. Every single one of these angles offers compelling points alongside massive holes, and authorities have yet to officially validate any specific scenario. What we do know for sure is that federal agents are thoroughly exploring all three avenues: the scrambler, the walkie-talkie, and the vandalized power pedestal. A representative from the National Police Association named Betsy Brantner Smith actually introduced a fascinating fourth viewpoint that ties everything together. She proposed that if the perpetrators possessed the foresight to acquire and deploy high-tech scrambling equipment, their other actions should have matched that intelligence. The bungled behavior on the front steps completely contradicts the extreme level of tactical planning required to successfully execute a neighborhood-wide signal blackout. This glaring inconsistency strongly points toward a perpetrator who is personally acquainted with the victim and planned a highly focused attack. Her observation strikes at the heart of the case, questioning how a mastermind capable of executing complex technological warfare could be so careless elsewhere. Using walkie-talkies or destroying power grids requires serious skill, making the suspect's incredibly sloppy attempt to hide the camera behind a houseplant utterly baffling. Exposing his face for 41 minutes and wearing glowing gear are rookie blunders, while effectively knocking out an entire block's connectivity demands professional expertise. We are left with two options. The attacker is a brilliant mastermind who purposefully acted like a bumbling fool on camera as a distraction technique. Or, alternatively, a highly skilled partner managed the complex digital blackout from afar, while the less competent individual carried out the actual kidnapping. This points directly to a coordinated strike involving a pair of accomplices with completely different areas of expertise working toward a single goal. We have to look at past cases now, as scrambling devices are far from a mythical concept in the criminal underworld and boast a proven track record. Detectives have thoroughly recorded their usage, and just recently in Houston, a coordinated foreign syndicate utilized them to burglarize over 60 luxurious estates. During the apprehension of a Chilean suspect named Ignacio Castillo Contreras, officers discovered an active signal-blocking gadget directly on his person. His entire crew heavily relied on these scrambling tools to blind residential alarm networks right before kicking down the doors. These thieves crossed multiple state borders to steal premium merchandise, focusing almost exclusively on luxury purses, expensive timepieces, and high-end accessories. The former federal agent saw a massive correlation between this specific local investigation and the tactics utilized by those international burglary rings. She highlighted the eerie resemblance between the disguised prowler on the victim's front steps and the convicted members of that widespread criminal organization. By presenting security clips of similarly dressed intruders, she demonstrated exactly how both sets of lawbreakers completely neutralized residential safety technologies. Those Texas break-ins basically served as definitive proof that professional thieves readily utilize these black market scrambling gadgets to execute their crimes. Similar underground organizations have actively committed these exact types of offenses over in Phoenix. That is just 90 minutes away from Tucson, proving the hardware is easy to get, the tactics are well known, and federal agents can totally track it all down. Whenever a criminal buys one of these scrambling tools on the internet, they leave behind a massive electronic footprint for detectives to follow. Merchants always document the purchase, meaning whether you use plastic, digital wallets, or crypto, an undeniable money trail is left behind. Getting the item delivered establishes a real-world anchor, while the internet protocol data acts as an invisible, traceable cyber signature. Virtual private networks and burner funds will not save a criminal simply because that hardware still requires a legitimate drop location to land in their hands. Federal authorities will face a huge turning point if a signal blocker was utilized in this disappearance. Agents will immediately serve subpoenas to every single internet-based supplier of these gadgets to surrender their sales logs. Investigators will compare delivery destinations around Tucson with their list of persons of interest, matching the exact moments those orders were placed against the stalking timeline. Things escalate quickly if that interference tech was bought just weeks prior to the January 31st kidnapping. That simple sale ties the purchaser directly to the felony, though tracking down clues at the power box poses a unique hurdle. Busting into electrical grids inevitably produces distinct scratches, and forensics can perfectly pair those scrapes to the exact implements used. Seizing a matching crowbar or wrench during a raid transforms the theory into hard proof, especially since nearby surveillance lenses might have caught the vandal in the act. Aligning the exact hour of that tampering with the evening of the snatching drastically shrinks the suspect list down to whoever was lurking nearby. Taking a brief pause here, I want to express massive gratitude to all of our viewers and backers because your dedication is the lifeblood of this platform. Our audience keeps expanding thanks to folks who genuinely value impactful and authentic deep dive. Upgrading to a membership grants you access to premium unreleased footage, empowering us to investigate and share even more gripping, real-life mystery. Every bit of backing matters immensely, so sound off in the discussion section and let us know what part of the world you are streaming from today. For those of you glued to the screen at this very moment, type "I am still here" down below so I can recognize the loyal fans sticking around. Please smash that thumbs up button as well. And with that out of the way, let us dive right back into the details. Listen closely to this next segment, because malicious frequency blocking extends far beyond the horrific situation Nancy Guthrie faced. This poses a massive residential threat, severely compromising absolutely any property relying on cable-free surveillance networks, devices utilizing a wireless router to get online. Like the vast majority of consumer brands on the market today, sit completely defenseless against network disruptors. Throwing $50 at a shady website scores a tool that blinds your setup, leaving your gear uselessly blinking on the porch while zero data actually uploads. Should an intruder kick your door in during that technological blackout, you will be left with absolutely no visual evidence of the crime. Thankfully, defensive strategies exist, starting with hardwired systems that link directly to your modem using traditional network cables immune to wireless interference. Data flows safely within a protected physical conduit rather than being broadcast openly across vulnerable airspace. Blockers cannot penetrate a solid cord, but another great alternative is utilizing internal memory cards hidden right inside the lens housing. When invisible attacks sever your internet access and cloud uploads fail, that onboard chip faithfully captures every single frame. The crucial video remains safely stored within the hardware itself, leading into a third strategy involving overlapping tech to build an unbreakable safety net. Should the wireless unit suddenly fail, their plugged-in counterparts seamlessly pick up the slack, which brings us to mobile network failsafe. Premium defense packages feature built-in cellular antennas that instantly engage the moment your home internet drops, shifting transmission to a phone tower pipeline. Standard household disruptors completely ignore mobile broadband frequencies, meaning that alternative communication pathway remains wide open. Finally, keep a close eye on your router health, because a random midnight internet blackout should always be treated as an enormous red flag. Modern hubs frequently push notifications during outages, so getting buzzed at 2 a.m. in a sleepy suburb warrants immediate and serious caution. Following this tragic disappearance, the founder of a major smart home brand explained to reporters how an abundance of lenses could have changed everything. The executive stressed that an increased amount of surveillance angles on the property might have cracked the investigation wide open, firmly proving that overwhelming visual data is absolutely invaluable in solving complex mystery. The victim possessed a single smart doorbell that managed to film the perpetrator arriving, yet completely missed his getaway. The lens totally failed to pick up any trace of an escaped vehicle. Once the intruder actually messed with the lens by stuffing leaves over the sensor, the gadget went completely blind. Installing extra hardwired viewpoints equipped with internal memory would have provided detectives with a crystal clear shot of the attacker. They could have caught his ride, his license plates, and his exact escape route on the night she vanished. The takeaway is undeniable here, as relying on a lone viewpoint or purely wireless devices is a massive gamble. Believing your perimeter is secure means nothing if the underlying hardware is flawed, especially while bad actors continuously upgrade their tactics. Your defensive measures must evolve at that exact same pace, so let us pivot back to the wild rumor we mentioned at the start. We need to unpack the wild rumor about a relative bringing a blocking device to the memorial service on March 2nd day, 30 of the probe. The two daughters and a son-in-law actually traveled to view the beautiful tribute site that blossomed on the edge of Nancy's lawn. Bearing floral arrangements in hand, the grieving family members were closely guarded by officers from the local sheriff's department. Brian Enton from News Nation actually captured the entire gathering on camera. The footage and snapshots reveal a deeply moving scene where the trio shared tearful embraces while placing vibrant yellow roses at a makeshift memorial full of glowing candles and heartfelt notes right by NY's mailbox. Let us get one thing straight. That gathering was absolutely not a burial service. Nancy Guthrie has never been officially pronounced deceased, nor has any memorial service been held for her, mainly because authorities have yet to recover her physical remains. Labeling this event as a burial is completely inaccurate from a factual standpoint. Furthermore, throwing that word around suggests a tragic ending that detectives are not ready to declare just yet. Let us address this wild rumor suggesting Tommaso got busted holding a frequency blocking device. Absolutely zero reputable journalistic organizations have verified or published such a ridiculous story. You will not find a single mention of it on Fox News Digital, CNN, NBC News, Newsweek, or even the Arizona Daily Star. Plus, not a single police representative has ever breathed a word about it. Not a single seasoned professional has backed up this wild accusation. The FBI has stayed completely silent on the matter, and the Puma County Sheriff's Department certainly never issued any statements validating this crazy notion. Here's the most likely explanation for how this entire mess started. Some random web sleuth grabbed a blurry screenshot from the footage captured during that emotional memorial visit on March 2nd, zeroed in on a completely normal item poking out of Tommaso's pocket or resting in his grip, which honestly could have just been his cellular device, some house keys, or any ordinary thing, and immediately decided to draw parallels between that normal object and the strange gadget with an antenna seen jutting from the disguised intruder's clothing on the porch security camera. That loose connection birthed a wild hypothesis online. Soon enough, that hypothesis morphed into a trending rumor, which ultimately spawned a sensationalized headline crafted specifically to bait people into clicking. Let me break down exactly why this ridiculous allegation completely crumbles under any real scrutiny. For starters, investigators officially removed Tommaso Gioni from their list of potential perpetrators way back on February 18th. Sheriff Chris Nanos made it abundantly clear with a public statement affirming, "I want to emphasize that every single member of the Guthrie household, along with their partners and siblings, is no longer considered a person of interest. These relatives have shown us nothing but incredible grace and willingness to help, as they are truly the ones suffering here." This total exoneration only happened after DNA testing ruled them out, cellular data ping confirmation, extensive digital sleuthing, and an exhaustive 3-hour voluntary sweep of the residence belonging to both Annie and Tommaso. Secondly, that peculiar gadget with the protruding antenna was carried by the camouflage perpetrator rather than Tommaso. Security cameras out front caught the intruder lurking around NY's porch right at 1:47 a.m. During the early hours of February 1st, you can clearly spot the mysterious hardware tucked right into the intruder's front garment pouch. Meanwhile, cameras snapped pictures of Tommaso attending the vigil on March the 2nd, a full 30 days after the incident, standing in the bright sunshine alongside numerous police officers, trying to equate an item seen in two wildly contrasting situations, taking something held by a disguised villain at an active crime scene and comparing it to what an innocent relative held at a daytime gathering simply does not hold up as legitimate proof. That is nothing more than people seeing what they want to see to fuel their own biased narratives. Thirdly, a simple glance at the actual chronological sequence of events proves Tommaso could not have done it. He safely returned Nancy to her residence right around 9:50 p.m. on the evening of January 31st. The disguised prowler did not show up on the porch security feed until exactly 1:47 a.m. Almost 4 whole hours passed between those events, and federal agents from the FBI meticulously combed through all of Tommaso's cellular record. They managed to completely lock down his exact whereabouts while the kidnapping took place. Trust me, if his mobile device had pinged anywhere near NY's property when she was taken, detectives never would have given him a free pass. Moving on to the fourth point, genetic testing completely absolves her relatives. Crime scene investigators managed to pull a pair of unidentified DNA samples directly from inside NY's living space. Those genetic markers did not belong to Nancy. They definitely did not belong to anyone in her family tree, and they completely failed to trigger a hit against any known offender in CODIS. Had Tommaso's DNA lined up with either of those mysterious samples, authorities would have slapped cuffs on him immediately, rather than scratching his name off the suspect list. Number 5, simply having a mobile device in your hand during a vigil proves absolutely nothing. Folks walk around holding smartphones all the time, just like they hold their house keys or a pack of tissues, or even a bouquet of flowers. Grabbing a single blurry screenshot from a clip, drawing a red ring around a random item, and suddenly announcing it as a high-tech frequency blocker is a far cry from actual detective work. Honestly, it is just reckless online gossiping wearing a very thin disguise of legitimate sleuthing. Sheriff Nanos tackled this exact toxic behavior head-on by stating, "Part of me truly wants to step up to the plate and shield each and every innocent person dragging through the mud out there." The top cop did not hold back, labeling these ruthless internet rumors as entirely baseless and incredibly vicious. Then you have Dominic Evans, a guy who used to play music with Tommaso and also caught stray allegations, telling the New York Times, "It honestly feels like somebody just hijacked my entire identity and blameless folks are catching the crossfire." Let us be incredibly clear. The son-in-law was never busted with any sort of high-tech blocking gadget. Paparazzi merely caught him hauling floral arrangements to honor his wife's mother, yet armchair detectives twisted his heartbreak into a malicious conspiracy. Before jumping into the next segment, I want to shoot a massive shout out to all you amazing folks tuning in and backing our channel. Seriously, having you all here is the heartbeat of this entire operation. Our little corner of the web keeps expanding simply because You guys value authentic and impactful narratives. Stepping up as an official subscriber grants you access to some seriously cool bonus material, plenty of awesome backstage glimpses, and it directly fuels our mission to keep shining a spotlight on these intense real-world mysteries. We honestly could not do this without your backing, and we are super curious about our audience. Smash that reply button down below and shout out your home city or state. Hey, if you are actually still listening to me ramble at this exact moment, type the phrase, "I am still rocking with you" in the chat. We really want to find out who our most dedicated viewers are today. Also, do not forget to tap that thumbs up icon before you go. All right, let us wrap this whole thing up. Let me give you the actual factual rundown of this case as we hit day 38. Let us talk about the whole frequency interference angle. The legitimate police theory, completely separate from that toxic online fiction, actually stands as one of the biggest breakthroughs we have seen lately. Federal agents over at the FBI are aggressively digging into the possibility that someone deployed tactical countermeasures to mess with electronics on the exact evening Nancy vanished. Folks living right next door openly reported their internet cutting out mysteriously. Furthermore, detectives stumbled upon a completely trashed electrical junction box just down the block from NY's property. As for that strange contraption with the protruding wire sticking out of the prowler's clothing, authorities still have absolutely no clue what it actually is, and even the top-tier technical specialists cannot agree if they are looking at a communication blocker, a basic walkie-talkie, or some completely different piece of hardware. The one thing nobody can deny is that an individual went to insane lengths to guarantee they stayed off the grid during the early hours of February 1st, maybe using high-tech gear or perhaps just a handheld transceiver, maybe some busted power grid equipment, or even all of the above. The electronic footprint we expected to find from that evening simply vanished. Security feeds that were supposed to be rolling came up blank, while normally reliable broadband networks suddenly dropped out entirely. The sole lens that managed to catch the perpetrator, a New York smart doorbell retrieved by the FBI and Google from cloud storage, reveals 41 minutes of a disguised intruder leaving genetic material everywhere he went. Authorities are zeroing in on this case like never before. Right now, a specialized unit featuring a sergeant alongside 4 investigators is operating full-time on this mystery from the FBI headquarters in Phoenix. Mobile network pings are currently getting heavily scrutinized by federal tracking specialists, while genetic profiles are heading off for advanced ancestral matching. Speculation about signal blocking tech has unlocked a completely fresh avenue for clues. This fresh angle might just uncover buying histories, delivery details, and an actual identity, prompting former federal behavioral analyst Jim Clemente to declare, "We are definitely going to crack this." There is absolutely zero doubt in my head, whereas Coffiner described the whole situation as the exact reverse of a dead-end investigation. It is a blazing, active hunt featuring up to 100 federal operatives, strategic thinkers, Puma County deputies, and various police departments chasing down every viable tip. Former tactical unit leader Bob Krieger mentioned in a recent magazine piece, with each passing sunrise, they get 24 hours nearer to the finish line, which wrapped up his thoughts. Meanwhile, acting federal prosecutor for the Arizona District, Timothy Corchain, released a formal declaration confirming that the Department of Justice, alongside the FBI and all participating police units dedicated to locating Nancy, is willing to travel anywhere and pull out all the stops. If proven true, the use of a frequency blocking gadget reveals crucial psychological traits regarding the perpetrator. It proves that this individual strategized, did his homework, bought specific gear, ran trial runs, and ultimately executed his scheme. Each phase of that process dropped breadcrumbs, whether it was a sales receipt, a home delivery spot, a plastic card swipe, or an IP location. Maybe a mobile antenna blip right where he bought it, his web queries, or some tracking data. This blocking device was not merely an instrument meant to blind security lenses. It operates as a vital clue linking the bad guy to a series of financial exchanges that detectives can trace in reverse, going from the incident location to the store counter and finally straight to the culprit. Should it turn out that the electrical panel got intentionally vandalized, that conveys the exact same message to law enforcement, except it leaves behind tangible clues rather than virtual ones, such as scuffs from hardware, smudged prints on the casing, genetic material left on the exterior, and neighborhood security feeds that could have caught the vandal red-handed, along with a chronological map that, when matched against mobile network logs, puts a precise device right next to that power equipment at an exact moment. No matter what kind of digital interference tactics were employed during this incident, honestly, they certainly do not lead to a brick wall. They form a clear pathway that federal agents are currently hiking down, searching for 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, who has vanished for 38 long days. Relatives gathered at her tribute site on March 2nd, which was definitely not a burial service since nobody has officially declared her deceased yet. The man married to her daughter brought a bouquet, not some tech disruption gadget, while the actual hunt for whoever really scrambled those security feeds presses on. Which mastermind legitimately orchestrated the tech grid going dark, and who truly dragged Nancy out of her residence under the cover of darkness? Those inquiries are generating fresh clues kept strictly under wraps from civilians. If you have the slightest bit of information, dial 1-800-CALL-FBI. The bounty sits at over $1.2 million, featuring $1 million in hard cash from relatives, $100,000 from federal authorities, and another $100 grand through the 88 crime tip line. Reaching out keeps your identity totally hidden. Plus, you can shoot over leads by dialing 520-35149 or heading over to tips.fbi.gov. Furthermore, anyone who picked up a wireless signal blocker around the Tucson region during the weeks leading up to February 1st, or happens to recognize a buddy who grabbed one, or even hawked such a device to a sketchy buyer tied to this mess, the Federal Bureau desperately wants your call. Simply put, that sales slip means way more than just exchanging cash for goods. It acts as the golden thread, pulling us from a retail rack straight to the abduction site, zeroing in on a predator who believed the shadows could hide him. Online trolls completely twisted the sorrow of grieving relatives into a baseless witch hunt. They grabbed a snapshot showing the daughter's husband holding blossoms and immediately framed it as proof he was the bad guy. Web sleuths mistook a tribute gathering for a burial, taking completely disconnected details like some gadget tucked into a guy's pants and relatives paying their respects, only to weave it all into one giant fabrication. Focusing on the legitimate tech disruption angle matters a whole lot more than these bogus rumors, considering the fact that the actual narrative proves a mastermind plotted this abduction with serious high-level skills, completely wiping out security feeds across an entire block. Pulling off that degree of preparation and intense forethought guarantees our perpetrator was never just some spontaneous thug looking for a quick score. We are looking at an individual who dug into Nancy's background, staked out her property, plotted every possible getaway path, spotted the security lenses, and utilized specialized gear to blind them entirely. Meaning this certainly wasn't just a drifter strolling through the Catalina foothills. This was clearly a criminal who mapped out his precise destination way ahead of time. Pairing that intentionality alongside the genetic markers, mobile network pings, car traces, and the buyer's history for the blocking gadget is absolutely going to spit out an identity. Throwing shade at the relatives merely pulls focus away from the actual culprit, meaning every trending tweet blaming the innocent relative just gives the true attacker peace of mind. Furthermore, anytime folks waste arguing over made-up internet theories represents a lost opportunity to heavily analyze the front porch video, carefully scrutinizing the facial features, the thick brows, and the mustache of the real attacker. Focus on his distinct stride, that flashy pinky ring, and ultimately answering the one crucial question, could this be someone I actually recognize? As Coffin Duffer clearly pointed out, this suspect stands out in a crowd. From those distinct eyebrows and that mustache to his personal style, including that flashy little ring on his finger. Investigators also discovered a vandalized telecom junction box just steps from the crime scene, adding a physical sabotage dimension to the probe. A cheap pocket jammer covers only 10 to 30 yards, but multiple households across the block lost connectivity simultaneously. Experts split into three camps: jammer believer, jammer skeptic, and infrastructure sabotage theorist, with none yet proven definitively correct. The camera on her front door kept recording without a single glitch while the intruder stood directly in front of it. That uninterrupted footage strongly suggests the blocking device, if used at all, was only activated after the suspect entered her home. Asterisk, asterisk. The real lesson here is that whoever did this planned methodically, scouting the location, learning the infrastructure, and layering every possible blind spot. Asterisk, asterisk. Authorities cleared every family member after DNA testing, cellular ping confirmation, and a voluntary 3-hour search of the residence. Online sleuths misidentified a bouquet at a memorial as a jamming device, turning a grieving family visit into a baseless witch hunt. Every purchase of a signal blocker leaves a financial trail. Payment records, delivery addresses, and IP signatures that federal agents can subpoena. Whether the blackout came from pocket hardware or a destroyed cable terminal, the digital breadcrumbs point directly toward a suspect. 100 federal operatives are actively tracking genetic evidence, cellular pings, and purchase histories to identify whoever took Nancy Guthrie. If you recognize the suspect from the porch footage, his distinctive eyebrows, mustache, stride, or pinky ring, call 1-800-CALL-FBI immediately. The bounty stands at over $1.2 million for information leading to her safe return. Protect your home now. Hardwired cameras, onboard memory storage, and cellular backup systems are no longer optional in a world where jammers cost $50. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 38 days, and the investigation is not cooling down. It is accelerating toward an answer. Subscribe and stay with us, because every new lead in this case will be covered here the moment it breaks. Someone walked into a Tucson neighborhood on February 1st and made an entire block go digitally dark. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home that night while every camera nearby went completely offline. Federal agents returned to the neighborhood weeks later asking one specific question: did your internet drop that evening? A doorbell camera next door logged only an offline status, capturing zero footage despite overlooking her entire property boundary. The FBI released footage showing a disguised intruder on her porch with a rod-shaped object protruding from his clothing. Online communities erupted with theories: signal jammer, walkie-talkie, or sophisticated military-grade hardware used to blind the street.